Hey, everybody, let's get you ready for week 10 of the fantasy season. DJ Mikey D, give me my theme music. And yes, my sneakers are dope. We got the Jordan 11 Jubilees on. Just want to show that to everybody at home.
Put your shoes back on.
You who's him. You know who's him this week, Chris Brockman?
What do you got?
Hollywood swinging. Marquise Brown, wide receiver of the Cardinals. Look, Kyler Murray is back. Last year in 6 starts as the number 1 for the Cardinals with Kyler under center. Hollywood averaged 18 PPR points and 3 touchdowns. Now Kyler Murray's back. I think this might be time. If you had Hollywood stashed, if you were starting them and you weren't really happy with the results, I think now you're starting to get happy because Kyler Murray's back. Those two have a nice little thing going. And from last season, I think it'll keep up this year. Hollywood Brown is him. You know who else is him? Baker Mayfield, believe it or not.
Really?
Now listen. Baker scored 23 points last week, which is the 5th time in 8 games that he's had that many. And the Titans this season, I think, let's see here, 2 quarterbacks have scored 19 or more fantasy points against him, which isn't a lot. But the last time Baker faced the Titans, he passed for over 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he might have a nice little taste for the Titans. I'm going to say, roll with Baker. Don't be afraid. Put him in your lineup. He'll be him this week. Now, you know who's not him? I don't think Deshaun Watson is him this week against the Ravens. Look, the Ravens are number 1 in fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. Josh Dobbs is the only quarterback with more than 20 against them. And look, he's the pastronaut. He's gone. I'm not liking Deshaun this week against the Ravens. He ain't him. Have a seat. You know who else isn't him, believe it or not, guys? Davante Adams against the Jets.
Oh, really?
This Jets D is very amazing, as we know. He scored 8 or fewer points in 4 of his past 5 games, and he hasn't scored a touchdown in like 6-7 weeks. The Jets secondary is number 1 in fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing receivers. I think Steph Diggs, and no, I said I think, I know, is the only receiver to score a touchdown against them this year. Did you know that? So Davante Adams, for as great of a player he is this week in fantasy, he ain't him. He's not him. Now, the head or gut section. Sometimes you got to go with your gut and say, this guy might be him. Jahan Dotson. Remember that song, Mikey, from back in the day? Oh, yeah. Jahan Dotson, wide receiver of the Commanders against the Seahawks. He has 26 targets in the last 3 games, which we all know. If you have that many targets, that's a lot of volume coming at you. Your chances of being fantasy relevant are much higher. I like Jahan. He scored at least 17 in each of his last 2 games. And also, Seattle's allowed 11 receivers to score at least 13 or more fantasy points. So, sneaky good here. I think Jahan Dotson might be him. And also, Jerry Jeudy, believe it or not. Look, I think maybe he took Steve Smith's words and kind of used them to help fortify himself. Look, Buffalo's allowed 9 receivers to score at least 14 fantasy points this season. Cortland Sutton, low-key, is having a pretty decent year. I think Jerry Jeudy can be the next guy up. And like I said, I'm going to use my gun on this. If you got Jerry Jeudy, don't be afraid to start him. He just might be him. And that's my fantasy advice for Week 10.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.